First thing you notice about the school library is the smell. It isn't the sweet, dusty scent of old books. It's heavier, like damp paper mixed with something faintly metallic. Most students ignore it, but not Sarah. From the moment she stepped in for the first time, she knew something about this place was wrong. She had been sent there after school to help organize books as part of her detention. The library was nearly empty, silent except for the occasional flicker of the fluorescent lights above. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. Inside, the silence felt alive. The librarian, Mrs. Hargrove, was a tall, pale woman with eyes that seemed to follow you, even when you weren't moving. She gave Sarah a faint smile, though it looked more like a warning, and pointed her toward the back corner. Start with the old shelves. "Nobody goes there anymore," she said, her voice low, almost whispering. Sarah obeyed, but as she walked deeper into rows of towering shelves, she noticed the air getting colder. The lights above her buzzed, then dimmed. The books here were older, their spines cracked, some titles faded into nothing. She reached for one, thick, leather-bound, its cover marked with strange, curling symbols, and as soon as her fingers touched it, she felt a shock. She gasped and dropped it. The sound echoed in the empty room far louder than it should have. She bent to pick it up, but when she looked at the cover again, the symbols were gone. Only a blank, worn cover remained. Shaking it off, she placed it back on the shelf. But that's when she heard it, soft footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the next aisle. She froze. "Mrs. Hargrove?" she called. No answer. The footsteps stopped. She leaned forward and peeked around the corner. Nothing but rows of books, stretching into shadows. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was standing just beyond her sight. Determined not to get spooked, she turned back to her task. But then she noticed something strange. One book on the shelf was slightly sticking out, like it had been pulled and not put back properly. It was thin, bound in dark blue cloth, and there was no title. Curiosity overpowered her unease. She slid the book free, and as she opened it, a small envelope fell out. Inside was a photograph, blurry, black and white, of a young boy sitting at one of the library tables. His eyes were wide, his face pale, and behind him, in the shadows, was a tall figure, too tall to be human. She turned the photograph over, for words were written in shaky handwriting. He never left here. Her hands trembled as she placed the envelope back inside. Suddenly, she felt a sharp gust of cold air against her neck, like someone exhaled right behind her. She spun around. No one. She decided she'd had enough. She hurried back toward the front desk, but when she reached the main aisle, her heart stopped. The layout had changed. The exit that should have been in front of her was gone. Instead, there were more shelves stretching endlessly in both directions. Panic set in. She ran down the aisle, turning left, then right, desperate to find her way out. But every turn brought her back to the same shelf, the one with the blank leather book. Her breath came fast. She could hear something now. Soft whispering, too quiet to understand, but growing louder. It was coming from all around her, seeping out from between the books. Then a single voice, low and deep, spoke clearly behind her. "Read the book." Sarah didn't want to turn, but she couldn't stop herself. The leather-bound book was now lying open on the floor at her feet. Its pages were covered in the same curling symbols she had seen before, but now they moved, twisting and reshaping themselves like they were alive. Her vision blurred. The whispers grew into frantic chants. She felt herself being pulled down, her knees buckling, her hands gripping the pages. The symbols burned into her skin like fire. The next thing she knew, she was lying on the cold library floor. The book was gone. The shelves were back to normal. The lights were steady. And Mrs. Hargrove was standing over her, smiling that strange, tight smile. "You found it, didn't you?" the librarian asked softly. Sarah's voice cracked. "What was that?" Mrs. Hargrove crouched down so her face was inches away. "Some books don't like to be forgotten," she whispered. "And now neither will you." Sarah bolted out of the library and didn't look back. But that night, when she tried to sleep, the whispers returned. Soft at first, then louder, until they drowned out her thoughts. She woke the next morning with strange marks on her hands, faint but unmistakable. The same curling symbols from the book. She tried to show her friends, but by the time she did, the marks had faded. She convinced herself it was stress or a nightmare or maybe some elaborate prank. But when she passed the library the next day, she saw Mrs. Hargrove standing in the doorway, holding the dark blue book. The librarian gave her a slow, deliberate nod and mouthed the words, "He never left here." Sarah's stomach dropped. She looked away for only a second, and when she turned back, Mrs. Hargrove was gone. The door to the library was locked. Over the next few weeks, Sarah noticed strange things. Pages from her notebooks went missing. She'd hear soft footsteps behind her in empty hallways. And sometimes, when she glanced at her reflection, the shadow of a tall figure loomed just behind her. She decided she had to find out the truth. After school one evening, she picked the lock on the library door. The smell hit her immediately. Damp paper, metallic air. The lights flickered. She walked straight to the back corner where she had found the photograph. It wasn't there. Instead, she found a dusty wooden box. Inside were dozens of photographs, each showing a different student in the library, each with that same tall shadow behind them. Some of the photos were decades old. She flipped through them, her breath quickening, until she found one that made her blood run cold. It was her, not from today, not from yesterday, but from tomorrow. She was sitting at the table, her face pale, the tall figure behind her, its hand resting on her shoulder. Her hand shook so badly she dropped the photo, and when she bent to pick it up, the lights went out. The whispers started again. When the lights flickered back on a second later, the photograph was gone. So was the box, and she was no longer in the library. She was in darkness, the smell of old books all around her, but there were no shelves, no door, just an endless, cold void. The last thing she heard was the same deep voice, closer than ever. "You've joined the story." And no one saw Sarah again. Some say the library closed a year later due to structural issues. Others say you can still hear faint whispers when you walk past it on a rainy day. But those who know the truth don't speak of it, because some books don't just tell stories. They keep them